notify you once you begin your broadcast. The broadcast is now starting. All attend.
Everybody, we just will be joining us in a moment speaking, but I'll play his role until then. And we welcome you to the second in the 2016 Crisis Code. We're going to be talking about, but it was such a little fish in that area. We've spoken with you in the past about cyber breach and the exposures, and we had some requests to particularly focus. Been series now for a number of years. Those are recorded and available to you. You can go to the Firestorm.com website and see them. We ask that today you become our friend on Facebook at Firestorm Solutions and on Twitter at Firestorm Sol. The hashtag for today's session is hashtag Crisis Coach. We will be monitoring, and so if you have questions or to the toolbar on the your computer.
Okay.
Firestorm empowers you to manage risk and crises. Firestorm expertise is crisis management, critical decision support, crisis disclaimer. I think the whole world has attorneys, and so do we. And so you can't rely on the patient oral comment and discussion. The work provided by Firestorm with all regulations there. And finally, this webinar should not be interpreted as legal advice or legal and laying out those details. As we shared earlier, this is underwritten by the New Jersey MEP and Firestorm, and you see the screen. We've just finished the 10-year anniversary in the fall of Firestorm, and we certainly are glad to be with you. This is the second in the 2016 series, and we're focused today on the concept of phishing. If you want to watch past webinars as well as downloading the associated briefs and summaries and white papers by the way, there is, if you haven't been there, you'll start to see a little different look and feel in those areas. So today's moderators are Joe, and Joe, I think you own the New Jersey MEP. Why don't you talk to the other insights that you...
Okay, thanks, Jim. Yeah, I mentioned program is focused on helping manufacturers, small to mid-sized manufacturing companies, to become more productive, more efficient, and we do it through a host of different services that are really designed, specifically for manufacturing, helping companies manage their energy costs, or helping R&D tax credits that are available for development work that businesses do. We also get involved very heavily in process improvement and things like Lean and Six Sigma, but we also get involved in business as well. For example, we can help a company put together a strategic plan or a marketing plan to help them grow their business. We also assist in ISO certifications and compliance issues, in addition to obviously the business continuity planning, which we'll talk a little bit about today, and transportation, logistics, cost management. So it's almost, if there's anything that a manufacturer needs, if it's a support service of any kind, in all likelihood there's a resource that's available through the New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Program, which is part of the National Manufacturing Extension Program with over 60 centers across the United States. So basically, I'll throw it back to you, Jim.
We appreciate it, Joe, and thanks for all the things that the New Jersey MEP does for the manufacturers in the state. And the difference that you can make. And I think, Blair, I know you're on the call today, and I didn't know if you wanted to talk anything about the training around the new ISO standards that came out last year around quality, including risk, or if there were other observations you wanted to share. Blair? And for some reason I don't hear Blair. I know he's on the line. Looks like this is our morning for technical difficulties here, and I don't think it was the cyber breach or the phishing that created the problem. We're going to move ahead, and Blair, if you can join us at the end and make an observation, I would appreciate it. Thanks, and have a good day. My name is Jim Satterfield. I'm President, CEO, COO, and founder of Firestorm, and we've been doing the webinar series now together with you for a number of years. Today we're going to take a little different approach and think about phishing, and spell with the PH instead of the F. And I really want to make sure that the first thing we understand is that when we're on this subject, we're talking about cyber breach. This is what is a means to accomplish a cyber breach, and it is a potential that is certainly increasing every day within your business. The FBI shares that there are two kinds of companies, those that know that they've been breached and those that have been breached and don't yet know it. And so when you look at that kind of an exposure, the impacts on your company are extremely large, and this is a particular avenue that you can experience easily. I was speaking at the University of Alabama a couple of weeks ago, and a gentleman who had been the head of cyber espionage and cyber warfare for the U.S. government. Interesting gentleman. He worked also at Microsoft for a number of years. He holds 33 patents in information security. And he identified that this concept of phishing is responsible for the majority of the breaches that are occurring. So if we can patch this hole or help reduce that exposure, you certainly have improved the chances for your business in this particular area. Now, if you have this happen, you're going to be impacted at multiple levels within your people, the operational level, reputational, and even financial, depending upon the information that's taken and utilized at any particular point. So what I want to do today is to kind of share with you what you need to know and what you need to do around this subject. And you're going to see a lot of fish images here today as we talk about it, and that shark in the bottom right-hand corner doesn't look too happy. So today we're going to talk about cyber breach just to make sure we're all on the same page. We'll explain what phishing is, then what you need to look for, some various types of it. We'll actually show you some samples of what you can expect and expect that your people are going to receive, what you can do, and then give you some next steps. So that's the kind of structure that we're going to go under today in our webinar. So there's a rocket that just flew up on the screen. Now, why did that occur? Well, look at the quote. I literally work with rocket scientists, and I can't get them to stop clicking on the wrong links. So what chance does your organization have? And this is from the U.S. Army Missile Defense. And when we think about the exposures here, and we've often heard the jokes, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work in this particular area. It's an example that anyone is prone to click on a link in an email, to go to a site, to have something done, and that then downloads malware or keystroking devices and others onto their computer to make a difference. And it doesn't matter how smart you are. We've all visited sites, and we've all seen these types of things embedded in an email that look like it's okay, that later turns out that they in fact are not okay. So one of the things that we all are focused on, and Joe, your examples of all the things for training at the MEP are certainly good, because we all have a responsibility to run the business no matter what. We talk about that heavily when we think about business continuity programs and dealing with the types of events that subject all of us, of our companies, to risk and exposure. But there's been a shift. 80% of the value of corporate assets has shifted from physical to virtual. So if someone can get into your business, and then more importantly, get into your clients, getting into your employees, getting into your suppliers, there's a network there that could share tremendous information and do harm not only to your business, but it's attractive. There was a quote out of the 1930s of a bank robber when asked why he robbed banks, and his answer was, well, that's where the money is. And so when you look at all of these things, you need to keep in mind that they're looking to find out where is there an opportunity for them, in fact, to make money. Now, so when we talk about a cyber breach, there's a definition that's a good thing to start with, because you may not have thought about all of your information assets in the way that we're thinking about here. So it includes the hardware, the infrastructure, the software, the data in electronic physical form, because it could even include paper, and the knowledge that your employees have within your organization. It includes the communication, storage, and processing of that data by any means from your actions or obligations. So it's data that you have within your systems, data that you have in your cloud. All of those elements are coming together that could, in fact, so it's while it's at rest, sitting on your device, while it's in motion, moving from here to there and coming back, and any unauthorized security events resulting from the intentional or unintentional electronic or human actions that take place. So as we think about phishing, I think it's easy. It's a cute day with the PH. It's certainly been around a long time, and we hear about these things. And we tend not to think of this as a cyber breach. But when that's established, it's like unlocking the door to your business and allowing someone free access to come in anytime they want to do anything that they would like to do. So when you think about phishing, I want to establish a couple of things with you. First of all, every crisis is a human crisis, because as we have responded to hundreds and hundreds of crises at Firestorm, it's always the human element, and it's that element in two perspectives. One, what's the impact going to be of this crisis afterwards? But in many cases, it's what role did that element play in the creation of that crisis itself? Are there opportunities there to make a difference? Now, there's a term you may or may not have heard before, and that's picnic. And while we like to go on picnics, and they're certainly good, here we're referring to the concept of problem in chair, not in computer. That's the rocket scientist clicking on the wrong link. So in many of these cases, this is an opportunity for you to train your employees and thereby lower the risk exposure to your company, as well as to their own risk exposure to their business information, as well as to their personal information. Now, I like to fish, and one of the comments is that the fishing is always good. It's sometimes the catching is not so good. This entire process is designed to focus on that catching, because they're looking to get that opportunity. And I'm going to combine a couple of thoughts that are on the list here. So this is a criminal act. The difference between this kind of a criminal act and any other crime is that you or your company may be held liable for it. So imagine this. Somebody does something bad, and now you're responsible. If someone gets into your computer system through a phishing technique, gets access to the information, be it PII, personally identifiable information, or PHI, personal health information, and as a result sells that information on the dark web, then that gives you the liability from having released that information, even without your willing participation associated with it. And the reason why this is done by criminals is it works. You don't do something that doesn't work. Now, if we want to keep the phishing analogy here, there's a lure. It's some offer that's been given, and you respond to it. And we'll give you specific examples of that. And what's a lure? It's fake bait. It's instead of having the worm on your hook, there's a device to trick that fish to get them to strike it. Well, that's exactly what the criminals are doing in this phishing area. They're creating a bait that you or your employees will click on, and as a result of that, it opens the door and allows the keystroke logger, the malware, the other things within your system to do it. So they're looking for information so they can use it to commit a fraud. So getting in, they're just obtaining the information. When they then use that information, that's when the fraud occurs associated with it. So there are a lot of resources out there. I'll mention some of them today. But the little cute fish at the top of the page, that little 0 on the top, is a game that you can play that teaches you about phishing. The reason to point it out, it's on the Federal Trade Commission site, and it's something that you might be able to do with your employees, that they could go there and start to experience it as a part of the training to increase awareness. So it's nice to have a government source that you're not having to pay any additional funds to be able to address that area. So it's a human crisis. The problem's in the chair. It's the rocket scientist clicking on the other link. So what else are we going to think about? When we think about a cyber breach, it is a criminal act in that first line of others that you can be liable for. I think phishing sounds simple. It sounds like it's not a big deal. Oh, my computer got a little messed up associated with it. It's not. This is like the safe cracker, cracking the safe and getting access to the money, to the vital records, to those particular keys of information. And that's where we need to start to think of it. Now, like with any crisis, the breach is a series of escalating events. It may start out with one person, or it gets downloaded on to one of your applications, one of your servers, or a group of the computers within your system. Now there's an escalating flow of events as this thing starts to go, and it starts to be transmitted. Now, most of the time, when you learn of this, you're going to learn of it from a third party. Before you find it in-house, somebody calls and said, you know, something's not right. This doesn't seem to be working the way that it normally works. What's going on? Or I've had some damage that's occurred. The information that you receive initially will be insufficient and inaccurate, but still you're going to be forced to make decisions upon that. That's why it's good to have a cyber breach response plan in place, but more importantly here, looking at your information security from an assessment standpoint to begin with and figure out where your liability structure would come from. So in this area, you've got a loss of command and control. How you respond can create that second crisis. And it's your brand and reputation under attack. And we've already talked about that human element associated with it. And the last one is it's going to come as a surprise. We did a hot wash with a subsidiary of a large public company where there was a breach that occurred. And it had occurred originally in a summer time frame, and they did not become aware of it until the fall. So that escalation of the events became a particular concern with that area because the damage continued to grow. When you think about this, we open up that door, the criminal's going to find a way to take advantage of it. So it could be email messages that come in with links in it or information. It could be websites that you go to. It can be phone calls. And I think that most of us have historically not thought about the phishing phone calls that we receive that come in. All of these have in common that they're designed to steal money. Now, they may be stealing funds directly out of your business, or they could steal something else that they can convert into money. Your intellectual property, your financial information, the ability to have a wire put in and money being wired. It could also be an issue around the identity information of your employees or your customers, the financial information that they might have, or finally the personal health information. What their goal is with the phishing is to establish this malware, this malicious software on the computer, and then you have the ability to steal that personal information using your administrative rights, your logins, your passwords, your code associated with it. Many times in a company, they give it access rights to an area because, oh, well, Frank might need access to it. We'll give him those access rights. One of the things we'll recommend later as we're talking about things that you can do, determine who has access rights to what and do they really need them. That's a way that we can start to reduce the exposure that you're going to find. Now, while they're doing all of this, well, you see here this concept of social engineering. They're trying to use how people think and feel, and you'll see in a little while. Yes, go right ahead.
Hey, this is Blair, Jim. We solved the technical difficulties earlier, but I wanted to make a quick comment on that. Is that a fair majority of the MEP customers are small to medium businesses, and that point you just said about being careful about authorizations and where people can move inside the database. One is problematic in a small company because you have a very small span of control, so people are jacks of all trades. They have to have some access. But it's also a very difficult conversation if you go to an owner of a business or one of the leaders of the business and say, no, you can't. You don't need this. You don't need the ability to get into all of these systems because it's not just part of something you do, even though you might have the authority. And if you ever get phished and your password disappears, then we isolate where people can go. So it's a tough conversation to have with owners of businesses and principals of business, especially when they think they kind of have to touch all of the business. So, but it is an important conversation to have.
Right, Blair, good. First of all, glad you made it back through the technical difficulties. I guess we had phishing going on to block you out there.
Yeah, I shouldn't have clicked on that link.
It does it every time. But you raise a very valid point. And later, as we talk about the various kinds of phishing, you're going to see how that owner or the manager becomes the primary target because of these access rights. And so we're going to be looking at that as we look through each of these areas. Now, this social engineering concept, they're going to make it try to seem to be easy and natural and as a follow-up, but they're looking to get that software installed by the clicking on the link, going to the site, doing something. You think you're on the site of the account that you're supposed to be on, but really it's not that site. Their goal is to hand over that personal information under false pretenses. And so we've got to keep in mind that this is a crime. It's just not an inconvenience and a hassle. It's much more. So they take advantage of your trust since you may not be able to tell what's going on via the link, the site you visit, the program that's being used. It's not real. It's not a real link to the right place. It's not a real area. The other element that I could have put up here on this slide, it's not only your trust, sometimes it's your greed. You've won this area. You've got this opportunity. I think we all get those types of spam emails all the time where if you do this, if I help another person in Bahrain with their problem and they'll give me $4 million as a result of that, by this time I think I'm up to enough money that I can accumulate to pay off the national debt. So as you think about it, it's trust and greed that they're using in a social setting to create the ability to think you're dealing with someone you know, someone you trust, but in fact that you're not. So they're going to use that, and then you see there the targeted user, passwords, usernames, security codes, credit card numbers, bank accounts, wiring instructions. The list goes on and on. So let's talk a little bit about what sensitive information is. When we think about HR and employee data, you have a lot of the information that you see on the screen right now. These items could suddenly give them the opportunity to leverage and take advantage of the employees that you have within your organization. It could go on into commercial information, and you see a much longer list. I picked up a tickle today in my throat, so I apologize to everybody. But if you see investigations, sealed bids, that chance to get into an RFP process and manipulate the outcomes, designs and products, and I know a lot of our manufacturers in New Jersey work in specialized areas, and that's certainly proprietary intellectual property associated with it. The opportunity here is to experience a chance to protect this information. This is the target of what they're going for on their fishing expedition. So what should you look for? Again, this picture came off the Federal Trade Commission website, and it talks about that game to play that I already talked about earlier with the little orange fish. That's a good way for you to start to learn, or more importantly, to have your employees learn. And it's a short, quick, easy process. So what do we look for specifically? Spelling and poor grammar. Now, just because I sent you an email and I can't spell or I can't type, that's not an area. But you'll see that some words just seem to be out of place. They're misspellings of a company's name. It's not normal English that you would want to see and use. Now, we found that the use of the wrong word in a sentence for a word that we would use here in America was one that we saw a great deal of probably 5, 10 years ago, or 3 or 4. They've gotten more sophisticated, so the grammar has gotten better. The spelling hasn't gotten as well. But if you see anything that looks out of order, that's a good opportunity to say that might be phishing. Now, Jeff Foxworthy has made a lot of money with a routine about you might be a redneck if, and then would carry it forward. So you might be biting into a phishing if you see spelling and poor grammar. Links in an email from somebody that you don't know are a particular problem, or in some cases, it's links in an email that seem out of place. Hey, I just saw this on TV. I thought you might want to see it. If you click on that link, that would be a particular problem for you, and that gives you the access to create the difficulty that's here. So in an example, reveals that the real web address is not the one. And I took this quote off the FTC site. If you'll take your cursor, slide it over the link, and it will tell you what the real URL is that you're going to. So if in that particular example, it's not what it says, Bank of America. It's not really Bank of America. Putting your cursor over it will show you that it sends you to a link somewhere else, and that's a way to avoid it. Additionally, threats. If you receive a threat that, hey, if you don't contact us, we're going to have to close the account. If you don't contact us, we're going to have to charge you more money. If you don't do this, this bad thing will happen. You're delinquent on your property tax, or any particular thing that comes to you as a threat, you should view as suspect that this is a phishing attempt within your organization that you're looking at. And then the last is the example that I was giving about spoofing popular websites. They change it slightly. Instead of a .com, it's .co. Instead of the other exact example of it being your bank or one of your key customers or accounts, it's an opportunity that you go to, and then it creates that exposure associated with you from that for that. Now, here's some examples. You won a $100 gift card for Walmart. Please click here. Well, if you haven't been to Walmart recently, I don't think they're giving out, and you didn't register for a gift card, you probably didn't win a gift card for Walmart. By the way, where we're talking about this coming in from email, it could have been a text message also that would be tied in there. That's an example of using the social engineering and taking advantage of your greed. Hey, I want my $100 gift card. Here's a threat. We suspect an unauthorized transaction on your account. To ensure that your account is not compromised, please click on the link below and confirm your identity. You're just now giving them all your information associated with it. During our regular verification of accounts, we couldn't verify your information. Please click here to update and verify your information. Our records indicate that your account was overcharged. You must call us within 2 days to receive your refund. Again, what these are are relying on a human reaction. Hey, I want my refund. Hey, I've got to make sure my information's right. I want my $100. That's social engineering, putting you at risk, and more importantly, putting your people at risk in looking at those examples. Now, spear phishing is one type of phishing that's coming in, and it's targeted at specific targeted individuals or companies. When Target was breached, they were trying to find a way into Target, so they targeted suppliers who had access into Target's systems so that they could come through together. They're looking at getting that personal information to increase their probability of success, who has access within the company to be able to carry that forward. It's the most successful form of breach that would come in to a company today. Is this example of phishing, where they're coming in spear means you're looking at a specific fish and trying to gig it right at that point in time. You're not throwing out a wide net to catch anything random. It's specific and not general. That's the first area that we want you to think about. Clone phishing is where they're looking at something that looks like it is correct, but it contains an email or an attachment or a link to create an almost identical. So it looks like it's coming from your large customer. It looks like it's coming from your supplier, your bank, some government authority. And that link is going to be the key element. And it may claim to be a resend of an original or an updated version to the original. So they take something that's real and modify it enough to bring it in. It's a clone. It's a duplicate, but it's not quite right. And the difference is it's going to then take you somewhere where you don't want to go. Whaling is equivalent of spear phishing on steroids. It's where you're going after the most senior executives in the company. They would have phished to gain access, to understand. You address the email to Frank instead of Franklin, Robert instead of Bob instead of Robert. So it's specific. They then look through travel schedules, know that the CEO is going to be out of town at a conference, send an email that says back to the controller, oh, I was at the conference, and it's an email from the CEO, and I ran into George, who's one of our vendors, and his invoice hasn't been paid. If you would immediately go ahead and cut a check for George and send him the money, here's the information. Oh, we'll get the paper copies of it to catch up on it. I'll get back with you when I get back from the conference. The tone in the area looks like it's very clear. It looks like it's from your CEO, when in fact it's a masquerade that's going on. So this whaling is where we find that the senior executives are targeted specifically using that information and coming back into the company. Now, it's not unusual for individuals to be targeted in this manner, and it does work successfully because no one wants to disappoint the boss. Phone calls are another element that it can come in. So it doesn't have to be clicking on the email or going to the site. Someone is calling in and representing them as your technology provider, and they want to charge you to fix your software or to gain access. They give you trust. They ask for your username and password so they can install the software. It's an update. Maybe it's a free trial associated. Any unsolicited phone call you should view with great skepticism. It is the beginning that starts this. So it starts out from the call, and then it moves into your system. You'll notice that the common link in all of these is the person in the chair, the human element. That's where the picnic, problem in chair, not in computer comes. So how do we deal with it? Use trusted software and set it to update automatically so you're not looking at this area. Again, that conference that I attended just a couple of weeks ago, they pointed out that 70% of the breaches occur within the 5-day period after a patch is announced. Now that's pretty obvious, but that's one that I had personally not thought of before. If you think about it, if the software manufacturer is putting out a patch, they're identifying that they've got a problem, here's what it is, and here's what we're going to fix. Immediately it notifies the criminals that, hey, there's a hole here we can get through. They can either go directly, or they can go to China or some other country, and for $50 or $500, buy the software that lets them to leverage that avenue. But look at that, 70% of the breaches occur in that 5-day period after the patch is announced, but not yet installed. So here's something you can do, is to make sure that across your company, all the patches are implemented as soon as possible. Second, don't ever email personal or financial information. You don't want to say, here's my wiring instructions, here's all of that information. Those open up the door for that to be stolen and go to the wrong area. If you're going to supply that information, you want to do it on the organization's website. You don't want to have to send it and communicate. And that HTTPS, the S stands for secure. It could be mocked by a criminal, but you want to be sure you're really on your bank's website if you're going to be negotiating that wire. Review credit card and bank statements as soon as you receive them. We check everything on a daily basis just to make sure there's no differences that are starting to occur. And then finally, that warning about looking at any attachments or downloading files coming in from emails from people that you're unsure of. That's opening yourself directly up. Now, training. The way that you're going to make a difference in your organization is by training your people. Firestorm, as you know, and if we've talked about on many occasions, follows a predict, plan, perform methodology. It's a chance to let everybody understand what can happen in each case. Now, the onguardonline.gov is from the U.S. government, and they have a program that they go stop, think, and click. The idea here is before you automatically click on that, you need to stop and think about it. Does it look right? Is this really who they say they are? And how do we perform within that area? Now, the awareness training comes in and looking at what cyber breach indicators are. And that's so that you can be ready to respond to those. And we always would custom design this depending upon your company and the exposures, but it's an example here of the type of training that you need. On your information assets and technology, that's software, network, database, and access, your brand and reputation, including traditional and social media, and then the user experience. Remember, you're going to learn about this breach from a client, from a vendor, from an employee, because they're going to see it in all likelihood before you do. And so the concept of slow speed or programs not working as they normally do could well be an indicator. You want to make sure you have a cyber breach response roadmap or a plan. And there's steps that you would take at each one of the 5 stages of escalation: pre-action, onset, impact assessment, response and recovery. And that post-disaster is an area as we would think about the consequence management associated with it. If you've got questions about that, or if you need help on this particular area, it's something we can work with you. Now, as we talk about predict, plan, and perform, cyber breaches of significant exposure. One of the methods that this is accomplished is through phishing. That's the predict aspect. You've got people you probably know in your organization who's much more likely to click on something or to do something. That's where your training would be in place. Now you need to have a plan. What are you going to do if, in fact, that this has occurred? And then perform. Perform an assessment of your information security, perform the response that you would do, the training that would be involved. So what must you do? Have good practices. Need to know access only. Don't give everyone access to everything. You want to let them have access only to what they need to have in order to do their job. You've got to monitor that access and make sure it's up to date. We've seen admin codes left on servers when they were brought up, and that's a universally known access code. So it's, again, creating a backdoor. Train, train, train. You've got to train your people. You have to make sure they're aware. Identify all the software and devices that are used. Then bring your own device policies and how you're going to control that. Why do you let people plug any type of a flash drive in that they got at a conference or a meeting? And then being prepared is more important than trying to stop it. It's going to happen. We can certainly reduce it with the training and all the steps you're seeing here. But you're going to have to be ready if, in fact, it occurs. And what your responsibilities are to be able to show that you can document reasonable care. So what can you do? Do your people know what not to do? In this case, we've talked about the clicking on and the variety of other areas. There is going to be a cyber breach exercise that you can attend with your management team. It's on April the 18th at 2 p.m. It's a 2-hour cyber breach exercise, and there will be a chance for you to train your team and have them begin to learn what they need to do. You can contact us. We can complete an information security assessment, help you align your plans to best practices, and help you design an intelligence network, or even provide the training that you need. There will be a brief after today's call that you can download, but it was such a little fish with some details that we covered in today's session. So as we do that, I'd like to thank Joe and the New Jersey MEP for sponsoring this and underwriting this webinar series. Joe, anything you want to add to what we've been doing here? I know you never do anything wrong.
Well, I do have one question for clarification. I noticed on the slide it said that the cyber breach exercise was on the 19th, and I think you said the 18th. Is the 19th the correct date, or?
I think the 19th is the right date. I'll verify and send that back out. We are doing a school workplace violence exercise on the 18th of this month. So maybe that's what I confused you
19th
with.
is the commercial or industrial?
It's the business cyber breach exercise will be on April the 19th.
April 19th.
Okay, great.
All right. Blair, do you want to add anything?
Just a quick note, and again, I kind of come back to the nature of the customers that I've dealt with working with Joe, and I know a lot of the customers, as again, don't have a lot of them. There's some large customers to deal with, but there's many of them don't have, large infrastructures, CIOs and CTOs and heads of security and those kinds of things. And usually there's somebody that looks after, the ERP system, or they've got a couple of IT staff to do that. And I just want to stress that this is really a business issue more than it is a technical issue. The IT teams, or your technical group, will be the owners of the tools, and will, if something happens, they're the first ones to respond to try to fix it. But the reality is this is really focused on the business and affects all levels of the business. So again, part of that training is understanding this is just not a technical issue, it's a real business issue, and you have to train at all levels to understand when to respond, how to respond, and just understand that it's just not an IT or technical problem.
Thanks, Blair, and I think you emphasized great points there. Training is going to be the key. As we were all committed to continuous improvement in the processes associated with it, this is a particular area that would carry forward. It comes back to the quality issue and including risk in your quality decision. And this cyber risk is a very real one. Your help desk guy or your IT guy is going to keep your systems up and running, and he's got a firewall in place. What we've talked about here today is what you need to do to create a human firewall so that you're not increasing the risk exposure by the actions that you or your people take. And that's where the training, and Blair certainly can help you with that. And we will try to reach out to everybody on today's call and share and see if there are any questions associated with it.
Jim, one point that you mentioned earlier when I was on mute in the early beginning is that we're working with the MEP and everyone who's ISO 9000 realizes the changes in the certifications coming up. And this is a good example of something that's probably hasn't been part of the thought process before. In the certification changes, you have to identify the risks to your business. You have to understand them and document them, and as part of your now quality management process. Well, this is an identified risk. This is a risk that people would not logically say, well, how does that affect my quality? Well, if your business is not running, or you're not getting product out the door, or your invoices are being absconded by somebody, that's going to hurt your quality. So part of the ISO change, this is one of those risks that they're going to look to you to say, do you have mitigants? Do you understand what they are? Do you have policies and procedures and training in place to protect your business against this? If you do, then that's great. You've met the requirement and you understand risk in your business. If you don't, then you could potentially have some problems. So again, those changes, and Jim, thanks for mentioning it earlier, this is one of those risks that's going to have to be part of your planning process.
And it's not going away, and it's only going to get bigger. So if it's the rumor has it that it's winter in New Jersey, and I don't think most of us are leaving all our windows open at night and all our doors open at night because it's so warm and balmy outside. Those are things that we're going to need to look at. If you want to listen to this webinar again, you can go to firestorm.com and click on the link there and be able to listen to it or any other webinar that we've had. You can also fill out a contact form there, and we'll be back in touch with you. Or you can send us an email at webinars@firestorm.com or call us at 800-321-2219. So we've gone a couple of minutes over today. I certainly hope that it's been helpful to let you see about that. I hope you get to go fishing with the F and not the PH. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Great, Jim. Thank you. Bye now.
Jim.